Good morning. Welcome to the Sunday, January 9th edition of Food and Friends. I'm Larry McIntosh, and I will be your host for the next hour and every Sunday morning from 8 to 9. To start off today, I want to remind you about Peak of the Market's food drive for Winnipeg Harvest and how you can help without spending a cent. Just visit peakmarket.com and sign up for Peak of the Market's free recipe emails on a daily to weekly basis. For every person who subscribes between now and the end of February, Peak of the Market growers will donate 50 pounds of fresh vegetables to Winnipeg Harvest. As you may know, Winnipeg Harvest shares food with over 320 food banks and soup kitchens throughout Manitoba, not just in Winnipeg, but throughout the province. We currently have over 48,000 people in 134 countries receiving Peak of the Market's recipe emails, and we would love to have you join the club. To sign up to receive some great recipes and help out the food bank, please visit peakmarket.com. My guest today is Rob Warren from the Asper School of Business, Stu Clark Centre for Entrepreneurship. Rob is an active media commentator and has been interviewed by media around the world. As a matter of fact, Rob has been interviewed by media outlets from all 10 provinces and 3 territories in 2010 alone. Rob has started and run 6 businesses during his career and is currently the Executive Director of the Stu Clark Centre for Entrepreneurship. Welcome, Rob.
Morning, Larry.
How are you today?
I'm doing great, thanks. It's a great day here in Winnipeg, and it's a great new year where the city's got a bright future in front of it.
Absolutely. Now, if you've listened to any of Foods and Friends, this is one of our newer episodes for this year, obviously only the second one of the year. I mispronounce names a lot. So entrepreneurship, I'm going to pretty much mess that up at some point.
You know, Larry, a few years ago, our corporate spokesperson was Terry Bradshaw from the former Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, and he did an 8.5-minute promo video for us and mispronounced entrepreneur 16 times in that video. That alone made that whole thing all worthwhile. However, when it appeared on national television in the U.S., it was a little embarrassing that we didn't get the name quite the way we wanted it.
Well, I feel better about that. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about the Asper School of Business and the Stu Clark Centre for Entrepreneurship.
Well, the Asper School of Business is Manitoba's oldest business school. It's been around since the 40s, and it's the premier school. If you take a look, that the School of Business has produced some of Canada's biggest business leaders. Probably the ones that most people are familiar with are guys like Jerry Schwartz and Rick Waugh from Scotiabank. But it's really important to remember that at one time, every one of the heads of the major insurance companies in Canada were graduates of the Asper School of Business. And most of the CEOs of the major banks were also Asper grads as well. So we've had a huge impact on this country. But if you take a look internationally, one of our most famous alumni is F. Ross Johnson, a guy who's probably kind of near and dear to your heart because he was CEO of RJR Nabisco back in the 80s when he decided to take it over. Unfortunately, F. Ross wasn't successful in his takeover attempt, but he did set the record for the biggest leverage buyout in history at the time at $29.75 billion.
$29.75 billion.
Billion, yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the Asper School of Business is part of the University of Manitoba, correct?
Right. The Asper School of Business is part of the University of Manitoba. We've got 1,600 undergrad students, about 150 master's students, and then a dozen PhDs. And we've had great success with all of those. Talked about some of our graduates and where they've worked at, but some of our PhD graduates have gone on to major institutions. As a matter of fact, just before the Christmas break, one of our PhDs was hired by the London School of Economics, which is generally considered to be one of the preeminent schools in the world. So you've got a gem here right in Winnipeg in terms of producing not only business leaders, but also the teachers of the business leaders of tomorrow.
Wow. And the Stu Clark Centre for Entrepreneurship is part of the Asper School, just so I can kind of get that understanding.
Yeah. Now, Manitoba's had entrepreneurship for a long time. And I think a lot of people in this province don't realize that we were one of the trendsetters in this country, that the first entrepreneurship class hit in 1984. So just about the time that I was coming out of the school. I'm an 85 grad. Never heard of it at the time. It shows you how much I was paying attention as a student. We started the Entrepreneurship Center in 1989 when about a dozen of Winnipeg's business leaders, including John Buehler, ponied up $250,000 to set up a center for entrepreneurship. And it kind of chugged along until the 90s, doing the occasional program, funding some academic research. And then in the mid-90s, Izzy Asper came along and gave us $1 million. We were one of the first beneficiaries of the Thanks a Million campaign that he set up at CanWest. and we became the Asper Centre for Entrepreneurship, and I was hired as the executive director at the time. We started adding programs, we grew the center, and then in 2008, Stu Clark came along and made a donation of $5 million to the University of Manitoba, and we renamed the center in his honor. And as part of that, to keep in touch with our roots with the Asper family, I became the only person on campus who's a non-academic endowed position when my position was named the I.H. Asper Executive Director for Entrepreneurship.
Wow. So Stu Clark, you people have heard the name. Recently, you made a large donation to the Human Rights Museum as well. What's his background? Did you go to the university? Or?
Stu Clark is a graduate of the University of Manitoba, I believe class of 76. And like most members of the class of 76, there weren't a lot of jobs in the province at that time. So he went out to Calgary and was working for one of the chartered banks. Didn't like that, decided that he wanted to go work for the BDC and learn more about how business works. Worked with them and then got the oil and gas bug. And now he's a very successful oil and gas entrepreneur out in Alberta. I think he's had 2 companies sell. He's working on his 3rd company. But that's allowed him to really delve into his passions. And if you take a look at his giving history, he supported the Canadian Museum for Human Rights in a major way. He's also supported medical research in this country because that's another passionate portion of what he's interested in. Animal rights. And also education. And we've been the beneficiary of his educational support, not just with that $5 million donation, but since then he's given about $3.5 million more to support, actually $4 million more to support education in this province.
That's amazing. And I've met Stu Clark not too long ago for the first time, and he's an amazing guy, very down to earth, for lack of better words, and certainly has been great to the province in many ways and given back to where he's from.
Well, he's a good Brandon boy, and I think one of the things that we've learned is Manitoba is a great place. Winnipeg's a great city, but Manitoba is a great place, and we've had lots of people come out of the rural sections of this province who've gone on to do great things, and Stu's one of those. And I think he freely admits, when he was a student, he was probably not on the line to be on the dean's list, let's put it that way. But he had an entrepreneurial passion, and he brings that to everything that he does.
That's incredible. And we'll hear more about the Stu Clark Centre for Entrepreneurship and about the Asper School of Business and the university, obviously, known for business competitions, and we'll come back to that a little bit in another segment. But it's incredible reading the bio on yourself and on the university and the school, how many things are happening. We're going to hear more about that over the course of the next hour. We're with Rob Warren with the Asper School of Business, Stu Clark Centre for Entrepreneurship on Food and Friends, and we'll be right back after this break for your weather forecast. We're back with Rob Warren, the Executive Director of the Asper School of Business, Stu Clark Centre for Entrepreneurship, right here on Food and Friends. Rob, are you from Manitoba originally?
I am, actually. I was born here in 1964 and did my early education here, so I've got my high school degrees from St. Paul's High School over in Tuxedo. And from there, I went on to do my undergraduate studies at the University of Manitoba, where I majored in finance.
Oh, okay.
Which has, been great for my entrepreneurial career because I'm one of the few guys who can actually understand the numbers that the entrepreneurs are throwing at us.
Right. So have you lived here your whole life? Or?
With the exception of a couple of years where I lived elsewhere, yeah. It's been I've spent a lot of time in Manitoba, really got to enjoy it. And my family's been here for a long time, too, that there's been the Warrens in this province since about 1869. So before it was a province, the family's been here, and we homesteaded out west in the Tiger Hills area.
So you went to University of Manitoba?
Yes, I did.
Did you go to any other universities?
I did. So after I got my degree from the University of Manitoba, I spent a couple of years working for the Public Schools Finance Board. And there I was, 2 of the things I was famous for were developing up a program to determine when school buses should be replaced. Oh, and wow. I had a huge excitement a few years ago. I ran into the guy who replaced me, and he told me they were actually still using that program, which I thought was pretty good considering that was 1985. I did that one. And after that, I went to Syracuse University in New York State, Western New York. And there I majored in marketing and marketing research. And did all the fun student stuff. People always ask me, why'd you choose Syracuse? And I tell them that I talked to the dean of architecture at the time, was a good friend of mine, and he said, look, if you're going to suffer in grad school, do one of two things. Either pick a nice warm climate or pick some place that has a great athletic program. And I chose Syracuse because they had just a phenomenal athletic program at the time. Not that I took part in any of them, but I was an avid fan.
Now, we talked about at the opening, you had 6 businesses you've started and ran.
I have, yeah. I've had 6 businesses. A couple of them have been my favorites. I was doing computer installations in rural and northern Manitoba for a while, putting in some of the first networks that the towns had. And then that business kind of dropped off, and it did a lot of consulting work too. One of my favorite projects was actually in the original cross-border shopping craze, helping out the retailers maximize the value they were getting for the Canadian dollars they were collecting.
And any of those businesses running now? Are they all you've wound them all down? Or
I've got one that's still running. I do some consulting work. So you talked in the promo about the fact that I've been interviewed in all 10 provinces, 3 territories.